Are you feeling ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Transfer Nation videocast and podcast. Transfer Nation aims to create a network and community of educators who work with and advocate for transfer and post-traditional college students. Our mission is to build community, transform culture, and empower success for transfer educators and students by sharing resources and celebrating all things transfer. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Transfer Nation videocast and podcast. And if this is your first time listening, my name is Chrissy. I'm social media director for Transfer Nation. I'm also a podcast host, and I have the honor of interviewing amazing transfer students and different student advocates who are really passionate about transfer and really getting the word out about what the transfer process entails, how it empowers students, and why everyone should know more about transfer. And I think that's a really good way to describe today's amazing guest. Today we have Bianca on, and Bianca, we would love to just hear a little bit about yourself and who you really are. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Chrissy. So, hi, everyone. My name is Bianca Trevizo. I am a current undergraduate student at UCLA, second year transfer. So, I transferred from East Los Angeles College, where I was majoring in English, and later transferred to UCLA. That's where I'm at now in my final year there, where I'm majoring in English with a minor in education. And I'm also still currently working at the community college that I graduated from as a career guidance counseling assistant in the transfer center.
That is amazing because not only is she, minoring in education, so Bianca, you obviously are passionate about helping students in their educational path, but you're working at a community college and you're helping students really gear up to transfer. I want to ask you though, Bianca, a little bit about your own personal transfer journey. What caused you and brought you into that specific route of, choosing to attend a community college first and then transfer rather than going down a traditional four-year route?
Right. So in high school, I was a good student, but I think for me the issue with college and like the applications was that I almost kind of felt like I would be settling for a school that maybe I wasn't completely set on. I was still trying to figure things out, like what did I want to study? And so I think, when the time rolled around and I had gotten into a few Cal States, I just couldn't get myself to, go to a school that I didn't really want to go to per se. Not that there's anything wrong with Cal States, they're great institutions, but for me, I just thought, that wasn't the place for me. And so I decided to go to ELAC, which was not a really well liked thing in my family. My dad is very like strict on education. My older brother went straight to a 4 year. He went straight to Pepperdine. My younger sister went straight to APU. So they were like in the private school
Mm.
system. But, I just knew that for me, I thought, this is a great opportunity, not only for me to save money, but to kind of get to explore those interests. And so, I live down the street from ELAC, and so it just seemed fitting. It's a great school. And so I started my journey there. I came in and participated in the honors program there, which is an absolutely amazing program. I got to meet such great professors there, and got to take those more advanced courses. And I also participated in UCLA CCCP, which is the Center for Community College Partnerships, where I got exposed to the UC system, which is something that I never thought about going to a UC. And through there, I met some really great people. I met Heather, I met, Chelly, Santiago. I met such great, amazing people, and they were such advocates for the community college system. They wanted to bring, representation where representation is needed in the UC system. And so I knew that I wanted to go to UCLA. And so that was like the goal I set for myself, coming into into ELAC. And so I was there for about 2 years. And after that, I started my applications, and I found out in the spring of 2019 that I had been accepted to UCLA, and that's kind of where I ended up. But, I'm really grateful for the experience I had at community college, because I think it really prepped me, for a 4-year institution, right? Especially an institution like UCLA that is so demanding, so rigorous. I was stacked every semester taking, the most amount of units I could so I could get out of there in time. I got to meet a lot of friends who I still, speak to today, some of which who actually transferred over with me to UCLA, which is awesome. I met some great professors there, and I got to participate in a club where I actually got my writing published, which was awesome. It's Yeah, it was Writer Society on campus at East Los Angeles College. It was amazing. I got to
Very cool.
participate in like drop the mic nights. So yeah, I had a very well-rounded education at ELAC. I'm forever grateful for that community. There's such a welcoming environment. And everyone there was just so ready to like drop everything and make sure that, myself and all my other peers were ready for transfer.
Bianca, that is also incredible, and I really appreciate you touching on all the things that you were involved in at ELAC, because a lot of these clubs that you mentioned, a lot of students who are, setting out to go to community college or begin their transfer process, they're not aware that these types of clubs exist at community college. All these clubs that you kind of think of when you think about, starting your college life and the 4-year university, these clubs, like events like Drop the Mic Night, or getting involved in an honor society, like you said, these clubs are very active at the community college level, are a fantastic way to build your resume and application when you're preparing to transfer, and do all, just a fun way to get involved and have fun. And I love that you did all those things. And it sounds like you really built a strong community there. I also want to say I love that you got involved with, you called it triple CP. I like that. CCCP.
Yeah.
And can you tell us what that stands for, by the way?
Yeah, so CCCP stands for Center for Community College Partnerships. It's a program that's through UCLA, but is actually housed at multiple community colleges, where essentially you get to participate in one of the many programs that they have, where you can either decide to do a one-day thing. I actually had the opportunity to be a part of Classic Site. I was at UCLA for 4 days, like living on campus for free as a community college
Wow.
student. And it's really amazing. You get to hear from the same people that are going to be reading your admissions applications, whether that's
Wow.
that year or the following year. And they really give you insight. They talk about the transfer journey, and you get to hear from other students as well who've transferred to that same institution. So yeah, it was really beneficial. I think I owe a lot to the mentor I was assigned with that year, because she really helped me out, with the personal insight questions, which is
Mm.
like the essay portion of the UC application, and so many other things. So yeah, it was extremely beneficial, and you get to experience what it's like to be a UC student for a little bit, right? So that was really fun.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that transfer students, certainly can get more knowledge about, is that there are these amazing programs that exist, that are set out to help gear community college students for transferring. CCCP is an incredible example of that. I love that they had you come to UCLA's campus for a couple days. They paired you with a mentor. That sounds like it
Yeah.
was such an empowering experience.
Yeah, it really was. And the best part about it, which is usually a big factor in which, students can't participate in these educational programs, Triple CP is completely free. So they pay for everything. You're just there
Wow.
to learn and to gain insight, right? To be inspired, by being on that campus. So it's truly an amazing program.
That's an important note you made about it being free. I think that speaks to the promotion of making it more accessible, right? And so, yeah, I just love that you got to be involved with that. And I hope students hearing your story right now, that will inspire them to go and set out to look for those types of programs that might exist at the universities that they're looking at too. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. And I
yeah.
think at ELAC, it is a campus that we have predominantly lower income students, students of color who may not have always had access to these kinds of services. So all the more reason for them to, to take advantage of it and truly just, get to explore, different universities and the options that are out there for them, because it really just takes a student to like be on the campus to be able to visualize themselves there and say, yeah,
Yes.
I can see myself here on this campus.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And I love that you pointed that out. And with your transfer journey and kind of talking about, how you really benefited from things like CCCP, what do you feel like were some of the inspirations? Let's say three. What were three inspirations that you felt like were very foundational to your transfer experience? That could be, the inspirations could be people or programs, like you mentioned, CCCP, resources, or even if it's, an epiphany you had, or anything. What are three inspirations you felt like were very important and foundational to your transfer experience?
I think one for sure is definitely my family. I grew up in East LA. I come from a lower income household. And so I saw the struggle of, not receiving a higher ed degree in my family. And I saw,
Mm,
my uncles and my aunts, staying up late at night, to get through college, so
yeah.
they were a big factor in that. And my brother especially, he was the first of my siblings to go to college, and he did it. I mean, what can you do when you have an older brother that went straight to a private institution, right? You feel so like motivated to do the same thing, to be as successful. And so he's definitely, my family and him are definitely an inspiration to my transfer experience. Um, I think another, though, would definitely be the professors I met at ELAC. They were so, they were, the foundation that they provided for me was, amazing. I got, especially in the English department, I owe a lot to, not only the learning that I gained from them, but also just the guidance, the general advice that they were giving me on a day-to-day basis. They encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do, whatever it was I wanted to pursue and eventually do, with my career. They understood that, you know, your major doesn't equal your career. And there's a lot of things that we can do with, our degrees, but essentially just the pushing of them, to finish, always letting us know that we have to make it to the other side, right? And so that's important not only for ourselves, but for our community, for the community college that we come from, right? We're representing, these areas. And
Mhm.
so I just felt just such motivation from them. They all were very, uh, keen to share their own stories of how they got to where they are, right, as community college professors and more. So, yeah, that was another really big factor. Um, yeah, I think a final inspiration I would have to give would definitely be CCCP. Before that program, I knew that I wanted to transfer, obviously, but I think it really took me being there to see, the different, the possibilities that lied, at a four-year institution, especially an institution like UCLA. It is proven to be, the best choice that I've made. I'm so happy with the decision of going to that university, of the services that they've provided, the support. But Triple CP was just that like that point where I was like, okay, I got to do this. Like I have to keep going. And it's just so amazing to hear from other people like Heather, and hearing their amazing transfer experiences.
Yeah,
Transfer is not linear. People come from all walks of life, and I think it's important to remember that it doesn't matter how fast you get there, right? As long as you get there.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Mhm.
That's amazing. And I'd love, that might have to be the name of this episode, is Transfer is Not Linear, because that's such a great visualization of, not always going down the traditional route.
Exactly.
And you're talking a lot about access and things of that nature. And a lot of students, aren't granted that same opportunity to go down the linear path. But along the
Exactly.
way, as you're describing to us now, Bianca, you become more of who you are. You gain, amazing transferable skills. And what I'm noticing in your in the three foundational things you mentioned is they're all support systems, and that's something that transfer students need, especially in that it not being a linear thing. And from what you're telling in where you're working now at the ELAC Transfer Center, you're contributing back to that support system and empowering students in that way, and that's just absolutely fantastic. Um, and yeah, I feel like that's what we're trying to do, on this podcast, right? Is fueling that support for students and for educators who are listening in, because that seems to be a huge driving force for transfer students, is knowing that they have those support systems, knowing whether it's from faculty, like you mentioned, the professors, or from programs like Triple CP. It's so important that these students have that support. So thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. And then what do you feel like in your experience, knowing that transfer students are listening in right now, and I know that you work with transfer students currently, what are some tips or one tip that you would give to a transfer student who's preparing or getting ready to embark on, their transfer journey? What's a tip that you think they should know?
I think I would, let students know that it's possible, right? It's not out of reach. You just got to keep grinding, keep doing what you have to do, whether, and it's, again, as we mentioned, it's not linear. It may take longer. You may have to leave, come back for whatever reason. I was working part-time as a community college student, and that proved to
Yeah.
be extremely difficult. I was actually working 2 jobs at one point. So it was, I think it's possible. And you got to remember that it's not out of reach. As I mentioned, it's something that you can do. You shouldn't be worried about how fast you get there, right? It's just
Yeah.
about getting there. And I think as long as we remember that, you know, students will reach the other side of their transfer experience, right? They will be at a 4-year institution.
Yeah. And keeping faith that it will happen eventually, that all the hard work that you're putting in, like you mentioned, a lot of students are like you, and I was the same when I was at community college, working multiple jobs while being in classes
Mm-hmm.
full time, right? And so some days you have to just keep in mind that you are going to reach the end. I love that. I
Exactly.
don't think that's something transfer students are always keeping on the forefront of their mind. It's so important to live in the moment, right? To make sure you're taking in
Mm-hmm.
every opportunity and experience that's available. But it's also important to make sure you're looking to the future, to know that you are going to achieve that goal that seems so far off now. Um,
Right.
so I love that you shared that. But with that being said, and you know, keeping that those goals in mind as you're embarking on the transfer journey, what's something you wish that professional staff who work with transfer students know? That could include professors or administrative staff or counselors or program coordinators. What's something you wish that professionals knew about the transfer experience as they're working with transfer students?
Right. So I think for me, typically when you talk about transfer and the person that helped you transfer, we think about the person that's like reviewing your application at the very last second, right? And you're finishing up everything, trying to get those essay questions in and all that. But I think what's important to remember, especially as for educators and administration, everyone at your community college is a part of that transfer experience, right? It's those little
Yeah.
moments that we encounter, whether it's with our professors, outside a classroom for a few minutes or a few seconds. It's that dean on campus that is friendly and always says hi that makes up that transfer experience, right? It's the welcoming environment on campus that's going to propel students forward into wanting to, move on to the next step, to grow as students, because it's the whole campus is there as a support system. And so I think they need to remember that they're all a part of, these students' journeys. They're a part of their support system. And so it's important to just encourage students, to pursue what they love, and to just be welcoming, because I think that really, makes a difference in a student's transfer experience, right? Because they don't always have the support system at home, right? Through family or
Yes.
friends, right? And so I think
100%.
faculty essentially become that for many students. And so I think it's really important to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you're saying about professors and any other professional staff working with transfer students, realizing that they are in fact a part of the support system. I understand how it could feel almost distant sometimes, maybe especially if you're in a classroom setting where you're the one at the front and you're teaching. It's not always a thought of, you are a part of this student's support system. You are an active member of this student's life, a life in which they might not have that support at home. So keeping that at the forefront of their mind would just absolutely strengthen those support systems, like we were talking about earlier, how important support systems are in the transfer student journey. So, with that being said too, what do you feel like you wish society knew about the transfer experience that they might not know or think about? What's something you wish that society knew?
For me growing up, I always had the notion that community college was kind of like second rate, right? Like if you were someone that went to community college, it was because you didn't excel in high school, right? And so I think something that we need to understand is, society as a whole, is that we need to break that stigma, right? Community college is not a second option. We shouldn't be discouraging students to not pursue a 2-year degree, to not go to a community college. And so I think I just want, everyone to know that community college is just as legitimate, just as valuable, and just as much of an institution as any other 4-year college out there. And so I want people to remember to continue to nurture that network, that community, and, encourage society to see that these outliers, us community college students, we are thriving, right? And despite the stigma that can discourage us, it will never stop us. We will continue to earn those degrees, and we'll continue to transfer to those 4-year institutions, and pursue the careers that we love.
Oh my gosh, everything you said, especially you said, fellow English major here, so maybe I'm just thinking about alliteration, but you said nurture the network. I love that. I love that it's so important when you're coming from community college to nurture that network, to continue the connections that you make there, because essentially that's your foundation. If you're planning on transferring, that's the foundation. And to accept
Exactly.
that this school is just as legitimate as the school that you're going to transfer to is key to actually getting to take away from the experience and enjoy it, and take it all in for what it is, and to see all the opportunities that are possible at that level. And I think you are a shining example of that. And seriously, your story is really inspiring. And again, I love that you're working in a transfer center now, giving back and contributing to that same support system. And that's just really cool. But with that being said, Bianca, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing about your unique individual transfer story. We loved hearing about it. And if you want to follow Bianca on social media, Bianca, can you share where we can find you?
Sure, yeah. So I am on Twitter and I am on Instagram at Biapizza. That is BIAPIZZZA.
Awesome. And so, Bianca, thank you again for joining us. We loved hearing your story. But be sure to follow Bianca, and if you're not a part of our Facebook community, again, we'd love to have you there. We're always continuing the transfer narrative and connecting with each other. There's educators, there's transfer students, there's transfer alumni, and we're really building an amazing community that we'd love for you to be a part of. So thanks again for listening or watching if you tuned into the video cast, and in Transfer Pride. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To continue the transfer conversation, be sure to join the Transfer Nation Facebook group at tinyurl.com/wearetransfernation. You can also follow us on Instagram at wearetransfernation and on Twitter at transferpride. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at tinyurl.com/tnationtube. If you have ideas for future episodes of the Transfer Nation videocast and podcast, please email us at wearetransfernation@gmail.com. We can't wait to continue celebrating all things transfer with you. And as always, in Transfer Pride.